Hello everybody, Matthias here, and this just might be the strongest rogue build currently, at least in the PTR. I mean, probably a lot will change before the expansion Vessel of Hatred comes out, but as of right now, I've played maybe 10 different rogue builds and beaten Pit tier 100 on quite a few of them, but this Death Trap Rogue it surprised me. I've built this build in almost every season of the game so far. But all of a sudden, they basically 10x'd the amount of damage you can do with this build. I mean, you can put ranks in your ultimates now, reducing the cooldown, and you're dealing way more damage with the rune words. There's a lot of things that come together to make Death Trap an insane damage dealer. And watch me here create a huge pack of two elites, like two sets of 3 elite packs right here, and no problem. Some builds struggle with AoE because, you know, you can only hit one target in front of you at a time, but this build literally hits everything on the screen at all times. I mean, I have damage numbers on, but you really can't tell what's going on. It's just like a block of yellow that is the crits. So it's kind of like playing the piano. You can see I have Q as concealment, W for Death Trap, and E for Pen Shot. And basically, the play style here, when I'm actually dealing damage, is just to play the piano of Q, W, E, Q, W, E, Q, but because I'm becoming invisible using a subterfuge skill which boosts my damage thanks to the Paragon of the new dance board, and then using Beastfall Boots to reset my energy, which resets thanks to preparation, my cooldown of Death Trap. So everything is like a like a Frankenstein combination of skills that lead to a perpetual 0 cooldown of Death Trap, and it just deals hundreds of millions of damage every single time it hits, and it's like a bunch of knives coming in on the screen, so it's like 10 hits, or like at least 5, I think, that the Death Trap does. And thanks to the pants, Ice in the Dark, it's hitting twice, and now with the new tempers, our Death Trap's dealing double damage. And they added a in the skill tree, like the third option in the skill tree is another double damage on top of that to bosses and anything that's unstoppable, which is usually the elites for a majority of the time, as you can see on the screen, the little chains above their head. So it's just a ridiculous amount of multipliers, and the fancy thing, or not fancy, it's the wrong choice of word, but like the funny thing is that I did not have my armor at the cap. I did not have my resistance at the cap for this. I basically am relying completely on second wind. You see the barrier, the blue kind of shield around my health globe. That is, I gain a barrier whenever I'm spending 100 energy, which I'm spending like thousands of energy a second here. So that is keeping us alive, and I would want to use a weapon like a Shearus for the weapon mastery ranks as a sword or as a dagger, but I'm actually using Doombringer, which I know a lot of people out there, they find their Doombringer and they ask their favorite streamer, hey, what can I do with my Doombringer? I got a freaking, it's a purple, it's pink, I feel like I should use it, it's a mythic item. But it's usually not a good option because you lose out, you miss out on a lot of damage that you could have had. But in Season 6, I reckon slapping on a Doombringer is not the worst idea, because we don't have a lot of item slots in defensive, in the 3 defensive slots, because they're taken up by a lot of other damage dealing items. So putting a Doombringer in some of these builds, especially, there's not that many aspects that we can benefit from anyway. So using a legendary item doesn't really benefit us that much. So the Doombringer kind of solves the whole defenses that this build is somewhat lacking. And I mean, it's dealing shadow damage as well, so I'm not entirely sure how much it's doing. Maybe 1% of my damage is actually the explosions from Doombringer. So, you know, it's not nothing, because we're boosting that with Eldritch Bounty, the Paragon board, is boosting our shadow damage because we have the imbue on our bar. So it's there's a lot of shadow going on. Yeah, so far this is my fastest clear on pit tier 100, which in the live game, Season 5, this would be pit tier 200, which no one has even come close to beating. But now in the PTR, every other build is managing to beat pit tier 100, which is kind of crazy. And one change they've done in the pit, for those of you who played it before, is that there's this elite that's on the screen. He's just by himself, but he has 3 affixes, so he's like a bigger elite. I think he gives a little more like to the orange meter than the regular elites do, like than a single one, but still the 3 elites still give more than him alone. But so yeah, they're adding slight variations to the pit, but since it came out a couple months ago now, a couple seasons ago, it's quite monotonous. You just go from elite pack to elite pack. But with this build, it's actually kind of fun to try to drag and pull together big heaps of monsters. And here we are at the boss, and I mean, compared to previous seasons of the pit, you would spend 12 minutes fighting the boss, and you would go insane because you would have to do it over and over when you're pushing. But here, I mean, just play Death Trap. The boss fight feels like a speed farming situation going on, but this is the hardest content in the game as of right now in the PTR. It's very satisfying to play this build. I am not a piano player, but I kind of feel like I should be now after playing this. Just like clicking QWE, QWE, it's all I've been doing the last hour. So yeah, if you want to play this build yourself or try it out in the PTR, it might get nerfed before the, you know, on the October 8th when Season 6 actually starts. But I still think this build will be pretty good. So there you have it. Death Trap Rogue. Check out my gear using Inner Calm because we're basically always standing still. And so just as much damage as we can squeeze out. We got a couple rune words, gaining the Petrify from the Druids for 50% crit, and then the Barbarians, obviously the War Cry, to give us even more, like 40% damage or so. And then we're using Penetrating Shot in combination with Shadow Step to activate our close quarters combat. So that's why that is there, and we're not using Caltrops or Smoke Grenade like most other builds would, because we simply don't have space in our bar. So yeah, Headhunter, no Witness board with Snare for trap damage. We have Turf for the close damage, for the close quarters combat, key passive. We have Ambush with Deadly Ambush, classic combo, and Versatility with Eldritch Bounty, and that is the build.